questions in relation to the software solution itself, or anything that I can answer up front? Okay. So what we will do is Leo is going to pass control over to me. Okay, everybody should see my desktop. 1 second. Okay, making sure everybody can see, should see an assets tab on the left with the Symphia application open and a map. Okay. Sam, just to double check you see this?
Yes.
All right, very good. Okay, so we'll take this application from left to right, and just to kind of let everybody know that hasn't had full exposure to this, there is, you know, different viewing capabilities, different priorities. We have an operational tree that obviously relates to assets, and those assets are deemed everything from cameras to door contacts to registers, and essentially anything that is part of the cradle to grave requirement when executing an investigation, primarily related to an incident of sorts. But looking at our assets tab on the left, you can see that we obviously have store 156. We have, for example, and in this training, we have a group of cameras, which are actually cameras in the store. And we also have a few registers that we've added, which I will demo a little bit later on, showing the integration with the POS, along with attached receipts that can also be associated with an investigation. Looking at the assets section, the reason we have a tab dedicated to this, not only does it give the viewer, the operator, and those that are obviously using the application, the ability of a one-stop shop when it comes to the permissions they have when it comes to viewing cameras. But as you cycle through our assets, you can hover over the camera. You'll actually see a preview of the field of view. You also have the ability to look at a map, which in this case we've embedded a map of the store. And this map is completely interactive. It can be moved. It's navigatable. And you also have the ability as the user to click on the icons represented by these assets on the map to see not only a live preview, but you can queue up video, which I will show you later on, directly from the map. So one thing we've tried to ease is the ability from someone who's just been hired, say, for 2 days versus those who've been here for 20 years, and then understanding of the visual layout of the store in reference to those assets, their location, and their ability to identify which is necessary when investigating an incident such as a shoplifting. So these clusterings that you see obviously represent an area where we have 4 or more cameras or assets in general. You look over here, we can zoom in, those clusterings will break. So the map is interactive, it is adjustable. You know, as cameras are moved, you can move the asset. But I did want to make sure everybody understood that the new interface is and can be GIS related and map driven. So that's part of the assets section. So before I do move on, I just want to make sure anybody have any questions on mapping, asset placement, and the ability to, as an example, right click, show on map, which will also show you the exact asset that you're looking at. Happen to be any questions on that? Okay. One other little feature. Oh, I thought we had maybe a question, Leo? No? Okay. One other feature that is nice is a lot of times people will click a camera and they're a little uncertain in terms of what we call the coverage or the field of view. There's a toggle button up here, which actually turns on and off the field of view or the coverage area shown by the camera's placement. So in an example where you see a 360 view, that means this camera is considered a 360 camera. And it's got a fisheye lens, it's recording 360 degrees, which again, we will get into the de-warping aspect. But this gives you a visual of, do I potentially in the store have any areas of concern that are not being covered? Do I, in the process of doing an investigation, pick and choose the appropriate cameras that are actually covering the area of interest that I'm concerned with? But it gives you a visual representation of the camera's field of view. So I will turn that off, and we will migrate over to the Alarms tab. Under the Alarms tab, this is where an ingestion point, it's a single point of ingestion for all primary alarms associated with the store. In this example, we will be going through an ingestion of a POS alarm, and I've got a few in here already as an example. But when looking at an alarm, you can see that there are associated devices, which includes a register, and in this case, it also includes a camera. But with the POS alarm that has come in based on, in this case, surveillance analytics, we also have an associated attachment for a receipt. That receipt can be viewed. If there is any video or we have any associated cameras that are related to this, we can also look at that as well. That video will populate if it was available and it was a non-register such as this right here. So this is, and we will come back to this if we have time, but I did want to let everyone know that there is a full POS integration with attached receipts, as well as the video of when that receipt was passed. So it's all bundled and available for use in an investigation when necessary. Moving on to the incidences tab. This is primarily where you will be going when it comes to creating, editing, and completing an investigation. Incidences can be composed of video clips, still images, tracking sessions. It can be generated from an alarm coming into the system. It can be manually created from an individual watching live video. But an incident itself is composed of the response procedure, which you can see here on the right, which essentially is a set of activities or what we call standard operating procedures related to a cradle to grave execution of an investigation to make sure there's consistency in the type of response being applied based on the type of incident at hand. So this is to maintain consistency so everybody knows exactly what to do. An example for a suspicious person that maybe is a shoplifting incident, or we've got a loitering customer that doesn't seem to be purchasing anything, or somebody's in the parking lot, has been there for 5 hours, and they just appear to, you know, require a little bit further investigation. Along with the response procedure, we also have the associated maps with any type of devices that are associated with the incident. We have a maintained logbook of who is working on the incident, who is working on the investigation. Every step is accounted, detailed, and available for reference on an audit trail. There's also associated attachments of which you have the ability to preview and look through and generate different types of video requests, such as synchronized video, or in multiple different cases, still shots, or what we call snapshots based on, you know, areas of interest. So there's all sorts of attachments that can be associated to an investigation. And then there's the overall summary of where you, as the individual responsible for the investigation, can be placing notes and sharing with team members, as well as adding or removing different types of devices. So think of the incidences tab as a one-stop shop for creation, maintenance, and closure of incidences in real time. And we will create one in real time. This is, I just wanted to go over just the pane itself to make sure everybody has at least exposure to that. So before moving on to our video tabs, I just wanted to see, does anybody have any questions on that? Very good. Okay, we'll skip over the search for right now, but I do want to go to the video tab. And under the video tab, well, this is an all new, extremely efficiently designed graphical user interface for a novice operator or a very well experienced operator. And what I mean by that is your primary navigation points are going to be on the left. And on the first section, you have a devices section, which is very comparable to our assets listing, only this is what you can and can't see as an operator, the groupings that have been recommended by store administrators. But as you can see, we have the ability to filter and search based on camera names. You have the ability to remove filters and review all cameras. Again, the hover over feature is available. A simple drag and drop will populate the video tiles. A simple double click will also propagate the next video tile. And based on our layout that we have here, this is very commonly referred to as a 1x5. We have built-in layouts, everything from a single view all the way down to 16 cameras in a 16 camera layout. So this is where a lot of the primary reviewing of live and recorded video will occur. Multiple different, like you say, layouts. We have the cameras listed on the left, and then moving from the camera tree, whether you choose to use the filter or not, keeping in mind that the icons that you see showing live video at the top of the title of each of the camera views, the red button, which is non-interactive, this is visual only to indicate to the user that the video feed is being recorded at the recorder, which, by the way, which we do have alarms set up for, say a camera stops recording or becomes unresponsive. We have back-end alarms for that, but as a visual indicator to the operator, if for some reason this is not red, that means there's obviously a concern or an issue, and that's just a cue to the operator that that camera is currently in a non-synced or recorded state. All cameras have the ability to do what we call digital zooming, which is a left click hold where you can zoom in. And I should just double check to make sure everybody is seeing this somewhat close to real time. Okay, we're on a wireless network sharing right now at the moment. But every camera has a digital zoom option, of which a double click will bring you back to its original view. You can move cameras between viewing tiles however you see fit. You can add and remove as necessary. And you also have the ability to create what we call views. Now, as an example, I have basically selected a 1x5. I picked some, in my mind, random cameras. And I've moved some cameras around between each of these tiles, but maybe this happens to be a layout that I really enjoy. I use often. It has cameras that I'm concerned with. Instead of surfing through or creating groups to hold just these cameras, I, as a user, can come over to my views section and I can create what we call a view. Now, the view itself is very similar to a proprietary workspace of nature, because the views that you create and save follow the user. So whether you are using a workstation here at the store, you're at your home, you happen to have different workstations within the store, wherever you log into this application as your user, these views will follow you. Okay, so they're based on user login, not the workstation. So as an example, I've got a view here, and I can come up and actually click new view. And for simplicity, I'll just use lumber exit cameras. I'll call it lumber exit view. I can save that view, which it did automatically. And if I come up as an example, and let's say I just logged into the application, and I would like to view those cameras in that exact layout, just the way I did previously, all I have to do is select lumber exit view. It automatically changes the layout and pre-populates the camera views. That matches exactly what it was prior. So there's no limit to the amount of views. As you can see, I've created a few here as an example with different layouts. You have the ability to edit views, add to the views, remove cameras from the views. But again, these follow the user login. So I just want to make sure anybody have any questions on that. Very neat feature. Okay. Moving on, we have an option that we call bookmarks. which bookmarks are essentially quick reference pointers to a piece of recorded video that is being referenced in the future. As an example, we see there's a gentleman here in a cart. I can pause this video, and before I am really worried about exporting, how much video I need, what the duration is, I can come in here and actually right-click on that video clip and select Create a Bookmark. When I do that, based on the system configuration, which again is configurable, at this exact point, I will get 2 minutes prior and 2 minutes post a video made available to me in my bookmark reference. So we will call this Man with Cart at 5/4 today at 10:26. We'll go ahead and save that. Now that bookmark, if I was to go and look it up based on today's reference, you will see that there's the Man with Cart. So if I had logged out, logged back in, and I told either, and I can make this shareable between users. Primarily, it's tied to my user account, but double clicking on that bookmark, there's my man. They're automatically available. Now, there's quite a few different things we can do from this. As an example, we can start a tracking session, which we won't do quite yet. We can move to a point of performing a search on motion if there were other activities that we wanted to view within this field of view on this specific camera. We can export video. We can generate an incident referenced as an investigation. There's a right-click, a vast amount of options available that are primarily related to next steps based on I've got something of interest and I want to move forward with detailing out or adding to my investigation. So I just want to make sure everybody is aware of bookmarks, their use, and again, available to you. So if you go to a different workstation, you can still reference the Man in the Cart. So before moving on, any questions about that? Okay. Looking down at what we call our recent playbacks. Anytime you've made a request for recorded video, the recent playbacks pane will populate here. So again, a little bit different from a bookmark. Recent playbacks would be anytime you've requested a piece of recorded video from any type of different camera. Oh.
Are there keyboard quick
hotkeys?
hotkeys?
Yes. For the individual that asked about the hotkeys question, yes, we have a wide array of hotkeys available to you, which you also can turn on in the tool. Right now I have the hotkeys turned off, but you can turn this on via preferences. We also have a reference document that shows all of the available hotkeys, and every function actually has a hotkey in Symphia, so they are available. Okay. So again, recent playbacks, if I was to come in, double click a recent playback, this would have been a recorded clip that was requested back today at 10:29. So a little bit ago when I was creating the views. But this is all referenceable. You can dictate how many recent playbacks are made available before you have to actually search. You can filter by camera or subsystem, depending on multiple different VMSs, and you can manually remove as well if you want to. So you'll notice as I've gone through between different views, the actual camera listings, there's, depending on where you have your actual video tile selected, meaning the blue icon or the blue perimeter border that you see here, again, you'll see a few different icons showing either live or recorded, what the camera name is, the ability to what we call tear off a video tile and place either onto a different monitor or, drag it to a lower left-hand portion of your application while maybe you're checking email or doing other things. But you do have the ability to tear off, and you do also have the ability to re-inject that video back into the video tile. So there's a tear off and replace if necessary. You can go full screen if you need to without changing the actual view itself. From there, you can go back to a normal view via the escape button. But we do have some other buttons up here. Again, right click. Some people love the right click features. They're mouse driven. Some people enjoy, a GUI setup where they're using different buttons at the toolbar. We also have the switch to live stream option, which, again, right click tools live is available. But as we move through, each of these video tiles, depending on which one is selected, has these tools available to you. Now, again, depending on the type of camera, some tools are added and removed based on the functionality of the device. As an example, you won't have a heads-up display, or a HUD as we reference it, if it's a fixed or analog camera. A lot of times you're only going to see that with IP pan-tilt zoom cameras. You won't have digital presets that are necessarily available with cameras that don't support it. But a majority of the functionality related to just a regular video feed will always be available. One thing I would like to focus on and make sure everybody is clear is I'm going to switch to my single view. And right now I am in the tool corral. So I have the ability to move the camera around and just make sure, oh, I see somebody's got his dog over here. So I have the ability as I'm moving around and viewing, again, this is the 360, everything is being recorded all the time. But with the 360, and hopefully everything is refreshing appropriately on those that are viewing, with that 360, there's an option in here called digital presets, which basically is a fancy word for, hey, save the spot that I'm concerned with within that 360-degree field of view because I want to reference it very easily. So as an example, I've got a couple of presets that I've created here, where if I go in and say select the training test, the system will automatically go back. It'll reference the XY coordinates within the 360's camera's field of view. And with that, will automatically zoom in to my area of interest, which happens to be, looks like some gift cards over here. I also have another preset I think I called hand tools. And let's say, for example, I was concerned with maybe this section over here. So I can come in, that happens to be, what's that? We'll just call that, maybe we'll call that power tools. Okay. Save that. Now, if I go back to a different location or I close out completely and then reopen my HD tool corral, I can come up to my digital presets section here and you'll see I've got power tools now, of which when selected, system will readjust, it'll zoom in as necessary, and based on the camera's field of view, we'll show you exactly where it is that you saved it. So right now, there's no limit to the amount of digital presets. And again, digital preset creation is a permission, right? So that can be either removed or taken away. You also have the ability to allow different operators the ability to view which presets are available, either some or none. So this is all configurable, but with the 360 cameras that you have, multiple different presets can be put in place. So just before we move on to a few other items, any questions on that? Okay. Because this is a 360 camera, and because we have the option of digital presets, there are a couple of different views that we also allow for. Those views are what we refer to as panamorph view. So right now, this is a full view, 100% field of view within a single viewing tile. We also have a fisheye, okay, where you can actually zoom in. And then once you're zoomed in, it's probably taking just a little bit for the dewarper for you to see, but then you can move around within that camera's field of view, in what we reference as dewarping. We also have a portion where we call quad. This is a 2x2 split of the camera's field of view. And you can move around within each one of these. Notice how they're independent. So you can have 4 different views, which again these are still applicable. So it's not, I shouldn't say, it's quite common to have a situation like this where we've got 4 static views based on a camera's 360-degree recording ability, so that the operator has saved this as an actual view here. Completely doable. So there's multiple different benefits to the 360 cameras that you have in place. Very neat stuff. So make sure everybody's okay with that. And again, this is referenceable by a button up top as well, depending on which camera angle you're at.
Right, that's scary.
Okay, good. All right. Okay, so I'm going to switch back. I'm going to go to just a regular full view here. And I see we've got some guys. I'm just going to pause this real quick. And I see we've got 2 guys here. So one thing I did want to make sure everybody's aware of is we do have an image toolkit option. This is primarily for grabbing a snapshot. You know, obviously we're far past the days of grabbing your cell phones to take a snapshot. We have multiple built-in tools for this purpose, but you can come in here and select image snapshot. You can give your camera a location in terms of where you would like it to save the snapshot to. You can include the overlay camera name and the time. But if I come in and actually say, save this snapshot, it's going to save it to the desktop. And I will do that right now. And then now that everybody actually can see that that was saved, I'm just going to browse to my desktop real quick. Make sure everybody still sees that. You still see my desktop? Okay. So if I double click that image that was just exported, here's my 2 gentlemen. They're walking opposite directions. They just had switched some different tools that maybe were lifted, but I have the camera name and I have the date and time in the upper right-hand corner. All of this is configurable in terms of where the name appears, how large the text is, what color the text is, the time, the date, through the actual image toolkit application. So 100% configurable. Any questions on that? Okay. All right. Next item I would like to demo is what we call synchronized video. So as an example, let's move back to a 2x2. And with this, I've got a camera here. Obviously, it's the tool corral. There's a beautiful feature called the timeline. Now, this is something that is available on your cameras. It actually shows the histogram of video that is available over time, depending on the amount of activity within the field of view. And as you move through, you can actually change the date and time on the status bar that you see down below here. So maybe I'm going to go back to May 1st at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I see I've got a little bit of movement right here. Yep, that happens to be our man with a cart. And as I request additional video to be viewed within the timeline, you might see areas where there are larger histograms or areas of blue, which represents a larger amount of motion in the camera's field of view at that time. So here we've got, looks like the 6 a.m., somebody with a cart of some sort. But what's really nice is this is a piece of recorded video. And if, for example, let's pick somebody in the morning here, maybe I've got some movement with a gentleman. There's a lady with a cart here. Okay, so this happens to be May 1st at 8:57 p.m. And if I happen to come over, and as an example, I don't know exactly which cameras are going to be close by, but you'll see this is a recorded clip based on the icon These are live cameras. And maybe I'll pull up, let's see, what do we have for tool? We'll use these other 5. So maybe these were 3 cameras that happen to be in a perimeter around the tool corral. I can come into these 3 cameras without trying to worry about date and time and manually trying to what we call sync to a master clip. I can come in, right click on my primary video or my parent video, select create sync group, and then it's going to prompt me and ask, hey, based on the available videos that you have open, which ones would you like me to sync with your parent? I can select all 3 if I want. Click apply. It'll automatically go back to that exact same date and time. All of these videos are now synced, showing the sync with a group, sync group number 1. It's got a little like infinity sign here. And once you click play, all videos play. Once you pause, they all pause. But this works really well when it comes to drilling down based on a single camera and a concern of either a person of interest or an object of interest, and then having multiple different views that are synced to that parent camera. This, of course, is also something where we can do what we call multiple export. We have an option in the actual tool when you have a synced group to export video, and when it does, it'll export all 4 video clips. So this is something that it'll bundle. You can also attach this directly to an investigation and export the investigation out as well. So just wanted to see, does anybody have any questions on exported, or excuse me, synchronized video? Okay. All right. With the option of an export, if we were to select this, just a few things I do want to go over. With any export, whether that's a single file, a multiple file, or an actual investigation, you as the user have the ability to dictate where the export goes. You can browse to a location. You also, as an administrator, can dictate exactly where everyone's export goes to. So it can be either predefined or it can be customized based on the operator. You also have a subfolder you could relate this to, whether that's online, in-house, via SharePoint, a network share, a local shared drive within, AP or LP, depending on what group it happens to be. We also have the ability to export via AVI, which is our standard AVI, the Symphia AVI, and an MP4. So we have 3 different options depending on the viewing capabilities. We can go into these further if anybody has any additional questions, but yes, there is watermarking on the standard AVI. There is non-watermarking on the Symphia AVI, and the MP4 is available for viewing and playing without the requirement of any proprietary player. So it's open to the world. You can change the name and date. You actually, a lot of people don't know this, you can come in here and state a different time, date, year if you want, increase or decrease the amount of video made available during the original request. Right now it's looking like the request was for just a little over 10 minutes. But you can see that this is all changeable. This is configurable by the user. We did and have had for a while the ability to protect with a password. Sometimes we see that video is actually exported to a location that multiple users have access to. There are a hierarchy of different users, and when you password protect that video export, it's obviously made available to only those that know the password. And it's very robust. There's encryption built right into the folder itself, so it's very, very secure. So full export is available. And we'll look at that a little bit later when it comes to the file locations, the naming locations, the ease of viewing when we get to exporting video. Any questions up to this point? Okay. Moving on, I would like to reference an example incident. Let's see, we got 10:45. So in an example incident, I'm going to use a hotkey, close down my video windows, F7. And with that, the portion of utilizing one of my bookmarks. I'm going to go and select a time from, let's say the 24th through the 28th, just to see what I've got here. Got a few bookmarks. Maybe we'll use the suspicious person. So I'm gonna open up my suspicious person bookmark. Look at this video. I say, aha, this is the original individual that I have been tracking, moving to a 1x1 so you can see a little bit easier. Got an individual right here, and I noticed this about an hour ago before we had another higher priority incident come in, so I bookmarked it real quick. I'm coming back to follow up on this. Noticing that this occurred back on the 25th at 5:46 p.m., I am actually going to start an investigation from this bookmark. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to say create incident. Yes.
Where are investigations saved? Are they under each location like they are now, or an open platform like cloud? So,
Yes, for Carl Jordan, yeah, we have the capability of saving the investigations in, for example, ThinkLP, which we have an integration, and Derek will show it when we export that, as well as any like shared cloud storage that the user has access permissions to. Does that answer your question? Okay, and Derek, Eric will show it here when he goes into the export section where you'll see a check mark, and that will export to ThinkLP.
Okay, thank you, Leo. So as an example, we're going to mark this as a suspicious person because he does look suspicious. And because it is unknown, I am going to move to high. We're going to be, associated response plan. Again, multiple different response plans that can be associated to one or more incidences. Every incident usually is very customizable based on requirements for the investigation or what happened or what type of an incident happens to be. So I'm going to use a shoplifting response plan. Again, remember the response plan has basic standard operating procedures for how do we handle this incident. This is very finite and granular, so everybody understands what's required. You also can set your visibility scope as well, meaning that right now everybody can see this. If you were to click on this, you can come in and actually tell who, when, and what groups have access to this. Right now, we're going to just go with everyone at this time. And I will just select that, keep everyone there. You also have the ability to put a description. And I will just say, this man looks guilty. With that, you have the ability to accept the incident, meaning you as the operator, there can be one or more operators, but you are accepting this incident because, not necessarily because you created it, but maybe because you actually would like to work it to the end. So I'm going to accept the incident. Again, you have the ability to pass this incident investigation to another individual or group of individuals if necessary, but I'm going to escalate it as well, which means it's going to go to the top of my queue. If I had 30, 40 different incidences that I'm working, this one will go directly to the top of the queue so that I can see it, work with it, and make sure it's a high priority to me. So upon the OK, the incident is created. You can see down in the lower right-hand corner showing user who created it, the name of it. And looking back at the incidents portion, you'll see now I have a brand new incident. This one's been escalated. And with the response procedures that are associated, my logbook shows exactly who created it. Right now, with the portion of the response procedures, you'll see that there's empty check boxes. But looking back over towards my listing, if you look at the one I just created, as opposed to the one that was prior there to begin with, you'll see that there's no attachments other than the original video that I had associated. So I did this to show you that we can add and remove videos as necessary, but on the initial creation of an incident, the primary video that was used to initiate the incident itself will always have an attachment. And you can come in here, as you can see, you can play the recorded view, you can preview it, or you can actually edit the amount of time. So just to give an example, when you select play, we actually have an embedded video player just for the incident itself. So you can look and watch video, you can work within your different viewing tiles here. But again, this is video that is proprietary to just the incident, not video that is unrelated or different cameras that have no business being involved here. This is for full viewing of any attachments that are supporting the creation and execution of that investigation. So as we look through the portion of what we currently have, you'll notice that the HD tool corral, looking on the right, we can, if necessary, pull up a live video stream and it will show you live. We also have the ability with this preview where we can preview the actual video that we use to generate the original incident. I didn't associate a map at this moment, which is why there's no map loaded. But I could have actually said, you know, with the location of the camera, please propagate the map, and it would have showed me where the camera is located. So right around middle, remember when we first mentioned bookmarks, there's 2 minutes prior and 2 minutes post. So right around the middle of that clip, and because it is an investigation, this is where I've got by default 2 minutes prior to where my person of interest enters the camera's field of view and 2 minutes post after he leaves. So there is a portion here where this has automatically been amended and attached. It's available for reference. With the review of this, you can save it, you can export it. But what we're going to do is we're going to actually kick off a tracking session, which is tied to this camera in its entirety. But before I do that, just to make sure, is everybody okay with the investigation creation, you know, the associated response procedures, attachments, logbook, how we got to this point with the video that's attached right now?
All right, I'll do my best.
So we're okay? All right. So looking again, keeping in mind, this man looks guilty. What we're going to do based on this camera's attachment, I'm going to right click within this and I'm going to start a tracking session. Now, when we do a tracking session, this is going to kick off in our tracking arena. I'll pause it just for right now so we can just discuss it briefly. But again, this is a dedicated tab, as you can see at the top. But the camera's field of view that we originally kicked off will be on the far left. And then configured cameras based on their field of view or their ability to cross-contaminate fields of view so that it would be the next logical camera your person of interest would be entering into. Those camera views are going to populate on the right. And that primarily, again, has to do with the coverage areas. It has to do with administrative configuration. And it is the big reason for the tracking option that's available to the operator. It gives basically the ease of you not having to worry about which cameras do I need to pick next. I'm focused on the person of interest at the time, and I, as the operator, get to pick them out of the device, out of the camera of concern. So what I mean by that is we will start a tracking session by clicking the play button here. I'm going to initiate playing of all the videos. And you'll notice that our man of interest actually came into play right around the middle of that clip. And the reason I'm moving back and forth, again, remember, 2 minutes prior, 2 minutes post, I want to have bundled video available to me. So as we're going through, you will see our man of interest will populate the view. Here he is. He's also over here on the right. So we'll watch him a little bit. He'll make a move. We are tracking right now. So as I see he's coming over to here, I'm going to double click this camera. Now the next set of cameras is automatically going to load, which would be the highest percentage of cameras that object is going to enter into the camera's field of view. So our object is leaving, our human being is coming around the corner. Next set of cameras, I'm looking as the operator, that would be this one. Here he comes. He's walking. I see him. Again, this is being recorded. Let's see our man here. Again, you can do a digital zoom. You can zoom in, double click to come out. See, he's walking outside. I, as the operator, know next camera he's coming into is this one. Lumber load. There he is. This is all being recorded. And here he is now. Fully exiting. Now he's running. Here comes the cops. Unmarked. You're gonna pick them up. So at this point, maybe this would be what we consider the termination of the event. I can pause this if necessary, and I can come up and I can click stop tracking session. And then I have the ability to add this tracking session to an incident. When I do that, all of the video that I had actually selected with the camera's field of view for the duration that I had it up in my primary screen will be amended to the incident. So here I have the option to pick multiple different incidences depending on which one it is. I'm going to obviously use this man looks guilty. I'm going to say followed through store. He passed by the exit doors with merchandise that was not paid for. So I'm going to go ahead and click add. Looking back at my incidents tab, you will now see the man that looks guilty. Look at the multiple videos now that I have. So these videos right now are exactly the videos that I had used when I walked through the portion, and we can preview these. So here originally is our man coming into the scene. I think it was 46 you were at, I think, yeah. Here's our next stream where he's at looks like he's taking some gift cards. Yes. Moving to the next one. He's walking down the aisle. And from there, we've got the recorded stream for exiting the building. And then finally, running away from the building. So all of these clips are bundled together. They are referenceable through what we call a XML file, which is viewable. It's something that can be completely exported out. And with this as well, depending on the camera, the location, if we've got other cameras in here, we can come up and select, from here, a portion where you can actually either take another snapshot. You have bookmark creation. You can add, here's additional video that you can add to an incident. You can do snapshots. As an example, if we were in the devices column and maybe, this happened to be another portion of video that we wanted to add to an incident, you can either create a new one from here. You can actually create another image toolkit snapshot if you want to. But the big thing is to realize that all of your incidences have the ability to add and remove these attachments as necessary. So before I move on, any questions on that? Okay, feeling good? Okay. All right. So I did want to show, if you choose to export an incident here, there's an option up top in the toolbar. You'll see you can play all your videos. You can export a summary report, which is what we're going to do. You also have the ability to edit. You can close your own incident. And of course, return the incident to the queue because maybe your portion of this incident / investigation has been completed, and you can move on and pass this to another group of individuals that will complete and close out the necessary steps. So what I'm going to do is an export summary report, and this was previously mentioned by Leo, where this entire incident will be exported out, and you have the ability to make it ingestible through ThinkLP. So you have the option to check that box. You can, if necessary, remove the attachments if you don't need it. And as in a general video export, you can protect the overall folder that contains all of the attachments for this investigation by checking the protected export box. So what this looks like is, I'm going to close this real quick. I'm going to migrate over to my desktop. And under here, the incident summary report that we had looked at earlier, one second, looks like this. Depending on the amount of attachments, depending on the associated, still image toolkit shots, any other supporting evidence, the export PDF will give you basically an audit trail of everything that's been done when it comes to that specific incident. Who added what video attachment, what username it was, the date and the time, how many associated attachments are part of the overall investigation. And then with that is bundled, each attachment that has video is actually named based on the camera and the camera's name. From each of the cameras, each of the folders that contain video are named appropriately based on the date and time. So everything is extremely granular in its reference. It's easy to find. It's easy to understand what video clips were exported from what cameras at exactly what time. And then it is all actually bundled with a single file that a user can view all of those together. Oh, we have a question?
Yeah, just a comment on Austin's comment. Yes, and as well, that report can be customized to Home Depot colors and logos. So all of this, as well as the UI, that can be customized as well.
Perfect. Okay. So I think we're just a little after 11. I do want to make sure everybody has a chance to see a little bit of web review, but yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a real quick comment with this investigation incident process and the tracking. We have customers, other retail customers that use this, and they can actually gather multiple, 10, 20 cameras at a time, as well as casinos, and build this case in less than 10, 15 minutes, rather than having to go from one camera, look for the time, download, attach, rename. This does it really, really quick. So you can get through these cases much faster, just because of the logic that's built in behind the scenes.
Perfect. Thank you, Leo. I was going to show just a real quick on all of the video tiles as well. There's a attached video snapshot to incident, and you also have the same option depending on what camera happens to be available. So again, Just keep in mind that wherever you happen to be, whether you're in the video tab, you're in tracking, you're actually in the creation of incidences, that all of those items that you're reviewing can be bundled together with the incident that you're creating in real time. So it's very well defined, it's easy, and it's very efficient to make sure that you're always adding to or removing from as you see fit. Okay. One other little item I did want to show is in the video section under your devices, depending on the type of camera. Again, we do have what we call a feature here called search for motion. Now, again, we use bookmarks to bookmark video that we want to reference, in the future. Don't want to remember our date, camera name, and time. We have the ability to track both forward and reverse tracking. As you've seen, I forward tracked through following our suspicious person out the building. We can actually reverse that and track that same individual through the appropriate cameras to when they first entered the building. So it's both forward and back. We also have a feature in here we call search for motion. So, okay, so just to make sure that everybody understands, looking at, say, a different camera here, only because we've been looking at that same one for quite a while, you'll see that we have quite a bit of motion here. This is good. So this is live. Again, we have the ability to come in, and again, whether it's recorded video or live video, you can come in and select search for motion. As a caveat, just so everybody's aware, you can also use our timeline, which I'm not privy to any certain features, but I will say this is probably my favorite, where you can, as a user, you visually can see where the motion's at. The more blue, the higher the blue, the more activity within this camera's field of view. So you can come in here and you can click on the blue area and it'll show you exactly what's going on. Should be low activity here, higher activity here, lots of stuff going on right here. So the visual indicator is quite powerful. Also keep in mind, this is the last 5 minutes within this timeline right now. You can change that up to a maximum of 7 days if you want to. What I like to use this for is to look at cyclic usages and store registers where we have influx of customers purchasing and buying versus downtime. And you can see the higher the motion, obviously throughout certain parts of the day, and then you can see very little motion, obviously at night. But you can see the algorithms are working right. It's detecting when people are in the camera's field of view, and this is over a span of 4 days. So very consistent, activity throughout up the period of a day. And obviously this would change through holidays and, store closure points in time. But this is a very powerful tool. Just so you also know, and this is kind of a aforementioned feature here, is that as a user, you can come in and you can say, for this portion of video that I deem important, maybe something's going on, I've got a point in time where I would actually like to export some of this video out. You can come in and select your range selector, highlight a certain piece of video, and then move from here and actually export this selection out. So you don't even have to use the start end time, a calendar based export. It can be done exactly and directly from the timeline itself. So a very, very powerful option, and something that is used quite often, but a lot of people are just unaware that it exists. Simply select the range selector and we can come in and take that away. So very good stuff. So again, back to right click tools, we're going to just take a quick look at search for motion. You'll see that we have a search for motion option. We've got from 425 on 5.4 to 125. We'll run this because there's really nothing going on right now. What time is 11:10? We're just going to keep this somewhat simple. We'll run till We'll run, what time we got? 11, just for fun here. One moment. We'll do like a 11:09. So here you have the ability to control your sensitivity on how sensitive you want it to be. You also have the ability to say highlight certain areas. Again, this is a live view, but I could come in here and say, you know what, I'm only concerned with somebody who enters this area. Exclude everything else. Search for this amount of time. And upon clicking search, again, sample size, I'm going to search for every 5 seconds. I'm going to go through and search. And as the system is actually analyzing the video, depending on the amount of video and movement, you will see based on every 5 seconds, it's going to show, which I can double click to cue it up on the right. There goes a man with a whole load of flowers. I can view these clips. And from here, I actually can attach to my investigation. I can play, I can export everything that's associated with what I currently have active in the background. I can attach. But this, again, these are thumbnails, fully executable, fully interactive, fully attachable. But it gives you the ability, and you'll notice it's the same gentleman. I obviously have a small amount of time here, but you can do a video search for hours. You can do a video search for days if necessary. But you are the operator dictating the algorithm of which the video will show you thumbnails based on what we call your area of interest. So works really well. And we could, if we wanted to, we could just, actually, we could attach this video right to the incident itself. Pick the incident. Man looks guilty. We'll call it training only. And click add. And you should see now that video is right there. Preview. There he is. So everything is tied and driven around the investigation creation. So everybody okay with that? All right, so I was just going to say, with that being said, I think our time is up at the moment. So if anybody has any questions, please let us know and we'll answer it to the best of our ability. I'm missing one.
Yeah, we'll give it about a minute or so for if anybody has any questions. You can open up your mic and ask some questions as well. Okay, one of the questions, Eric, is for that activity, what are the contiguous blocks used for? What's the meaning behind that?
Yes, so there's on mute. Okay, so just to let everyone know, sensitivity is essentially it's an algorithm that looks at the amount of pixel change within a period of time. More sensitive, meaning picking up, say, light reflecting off of a window versus pixel change because a dump truck drove through the garden center. The block size has to do with the size of a single pixel. By default, the system is an 8x8, which is 64 pixels. You can reduce that if necessary to something smaller where you're concerned with maybe a mouse in the corner, or the camera's field of view is looking at a parking lot and the object might be a 6'5" male figure, but appears as, you know, a very, very small human being because of the perspective of the camera. But the contiguous blocks is the operator telling the system how many of these 8x8 pixels need to trigger in order to find an alarm or find motion, meaning that the more contiguous blocks you tell the system to use, which they have to be touching, right, in order to trip, the larger the object that is going to be required in order to facilitate a positive result. So if your contiguous blocks are set to, you know, let's say, for example, I bump that up to 45, I need 45 8x8 blocks to trip, meaning in a camera's field of view, I literally would have to drive like a whole pickup truck through the camera in order to trip enough pixels to facilitate a positive return. So I highly recommend keeping this down to maybe 3 or 4. A lot of your cameras are very close up. You have very good clear views. I would leave your sensitivity at about 90, leave your block size at default, and allow your contiguous blocks to hover between 3 and 5.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Eric. A question from Carl Jordan. When are we going to be able to access the system? So Carl, the system, I believe next week will be a pause week where the system is running. Sam has the client. We're going to be, as well as this recording will be sent to everybody that was in this meeting, as well as the first meeting. So as soon as the client is available, you'll be able to download it. And then I think there's some administrative procedures that have to take place just because of permissions and the IT standards in Home Depot, where I believe, and Sam can speak to this, but I believe you'll have to request admin rights to install the application. All the users are loaded, and as well as the user permissions in the system. But we'll follow up with some emails on that.
Yeah, and Leo just adds a little more context to that too. So you're absolutely correct. We have a rotating evaluation schedule. So we have about a total of 80 evaluators. We're going to split those 80 evaluators into groups of 20, and you'll have 1 week over the next 4 weeks to get into each of the 4 systems that we're testing. So as an example, if you're in group one will test Intellicene in week number 1. You'll test a different one in week number 2, and the third one in week number 3, and so forth. And then when you go in there as well, you're going to notice that you're going to have a special day assigned just to you. So let's say that you're in group 1, you'll see that Monday, May 15th is going to be your day to log in and test Symphia. So that schedule is published. We got internal alignment. So the next steps is we're going to send out invites to everybody, and then we'll share vendor-specific evaluation schedules. So Leo, you'll be able to see who's logging into your system and when. Last piece as well, just regarding that, is we do have the client, and what we're having to do is you'll have to request admin rights to your laptop. It's very easy to do. We have a user guide on how to do it. So you'll request it. Your manager will approve it, and then you'll have access to download the software from SharePoint. So we're going to give you the link. So you request admin rights, download it, run it on your computer as an admin, and then you'll be able to get it and start using the tool.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. Thank you. Just real quickly, I know the guys that are looking at this. Go ahead, Sam. Sorry.
Yeah, Jonathan, you are correct. It's a 24-hour access once you submit the request.
Perfect. Yeah, and as Sam was talking, Eric was showing that the tracking you can also do in reverse. So at this point, we're going to pause real quickly, change over to the admin. I believe that if you're not admin, you can go ahead and drop off as far as an admin evaluator. And this will be very quickly with the time. And Sam, we can also set up other meetings just for admin, just because there's so much to cover for the user. But it's, we can discuss that.
Yeah, and you are welcome to stay even if you're not an admin if you want to see the features. So
yeah. Great. So Eric will move us into the admin part at this time.
No, you have to approve it. So they have to, the manager has to say, okay. So.
Okay. All right. So what you're seeing here is the interface to the admin hub. And I'm going to log in as the administrator at this moment. Again, this is all dictated by user login, which can be timed out. Caps lock on, I think.
Yeah, I will when I talk to them.
So looking at the admin hub, 6 main areas. Again, this is the main administrative web-based interface. We'll go through a few different items probably the first and foremost, just to make sure everybody is aware of kind of how some of this is broken out, is users are users, but users are only going to be as good as the roles that they belong to. And what I mean by that is that roles, when we go in, we have multiple built-in what we call default roles, everything from an administrator all the way down to what we call just a general operator or supervisor. Now, these roles have a three-tiered system that allow you as the admin to break apart the administrative privileges as well as operator privileges into a very granular format. And what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, we take a look at AP users. Those three tiers that I was speaking about earlier have to do with operations. The next section is planning. The next section is administration. Every one of these three options, these three silos, are available on a user group basis. So looking into each one of these, you can see that the AP users we currently have set up, out of the available permissions in the operations section, which has to do with Symphia, there are 36 privileges given. If we expand this out, we can see which of those have been selected versus which have been unselected. Each of these arrows obviously represent different types of permissions that have been granted. In here, for example, managing incidences, everything from creating, viewing, seeing everything, the ability to track. We have allowed tracking, exported tracking, but we've taken a few things away when it comes to topology and learning, which essentially is the creation of the tracking algorithm. The manage video. We don't have audio from my understanding, so there's a few of them that are not allowed in here, but this is, and these are essentially all of the permissions that are tied to the Symphia application. So again, these user groups or roles, excuse me, have three different tiers: operations, then you also have planning, which in here, you'll see once we get towards the end of the admin section, I'll log in as an administrator, and you'll see where you have in the planning section, if you were given permission, the ability to manage your maps, which include creating, editing, and deleting maps. You can create different zones. You can place assets on the map. And then you also have responses. Responses have to do with standard operating procedures tied to the different incident types. So when I went and created a suspicious person and there was a shoplifting response, that response was created by an admin that's only selectable by the operator, but not creatable by the operator. It's just viewable and usable to them. Above and beyond that, then there is the full administration section, which has to do with access to Admin Hub, what you see right here, health check and device priorities, or the simple fact that nobody in this group has administrative privileges. So everything is kind of, it's in a tiered fashion because of the way devices, the mapping, the response plan procedures are put in place and implemented to give a lot more granularity and clarity to the groups so that everybody is clear on exactly what access they have and what permissions they are allowed to execute in certain applications. So the roles are a big one. No limit to the amount of roles that can be created. You'll notice if we go to the administrator role, full admin permissions, by default, they automatically inherit this as an administrator. They automatically inherit the ability to do maps, which is why all this is grayed out. So I just want to make sure, is there any questions we can address on that? Roles, the three different types of roles, and that these roles are then assigned to users. And I'll show that shortly. Okay. So moving from the roles section, looking over at users, you will see you have your organization. And again, these are just groups that are created based on the organization's breakout of how they would like to see their users grouped. There's no specific best practices recommendation for this. But as an example, we have a few AP users here, and you can see that under the AP users, there's the ability to create and edit this node, because a node can actually belong to a role, and the users that belong to this node automatically inherit their permissions. Or you can go to each user, which this happens to be me. I'm logged in as user 1 to control, to Symphia. I can come in here and manage my roles on a per user basis. So you can see I'm inheriting right now because the AP user belongs to the AP user roles group. But I can apply custom roles if necessary. So there's a very large amount of flexibility when it comes to users, the permissions, the roles they belong to. Users actually can belong to multiple different roles. And we, if one role says you can have access to a camera and another one says you cannot, you will by default have access. So it's a positive inherit role. Okay. We can come in as a user again, make sure everybody understands you can edit a user, changing username, last name, password, whatever you happen to use based on policy changes. One thing I highly recommend, based on those that are going to be administrators in the system, try to refrain from removing individuals. Change passwords and usernames however you see fit, but we highly recommend just activating or deactivating users. The reason for that is audit trail integrity. When a user is removed, the back end linkage that's used to create and maintain audit trails, should any be needed to be run, it makes things a bit more difficult. When a user still exists but is non-active, all of the integrity is still maintained within the database. So again, somebody happens to leave or somebody needs to be removed, please just use the active deactivate option. Okay. Okay. Moving on from users, we also have the operational section. The operation is basically what a organization has agreed upon to see within the actual application in terms of breakout of cameras, registers, any other assets or nodes. So right now, looking at the camera section, these are all the cameras that are ingested into Symphia at the moment. You'll see that it'll tell you what the name of the camera is, which you can change, the original name, which it maintains, the people are changing different names, what it was originally called, the device it is, and whether it has been officially placed onto the map. Some of these newer cameras that we just added, they're not available yet, but the existing cameras that were worked on here, I think last week, these are all available and placed on the map. So this is something where if adjustments need to be made on what cameras can be seen under what different groups. Again, that's under the user section for camera viewing, but we also have a register listing as well. So this is how it actually looks when I'm in my video right here. Oops, let me move up real quick. You'll see I have cameras and registers right here. This is under the assets section. This is what looks very similar back on here, store 156. So it's the operational node of how it actually looks in the application. Any questions on that?
Eric, real quick, maybe you can show them how to discover devices, just now that you're in there, how quickly to add devices into the solution.
Sure. So if we go to the assets section, under assets, we go to our store, go to the server, you'll notice that there's, obviously we just took a brief look at our POS integration, but under the Symphia server section, there's an option where if new cameras are made available, there's a little button up here called update device list, where if a new camera is added or made available and we want to ingest it into Symphia, we simply come in here and click the update device list button. It will then populate the existing list that you see here, and you can dictate whether you want that camera to appear on the operational tree or not. Okay, so all of this is on a per camera basis. These cameras are, these are not, because these are dry contacts. And we ingest a lot more than just the camera, as you can see here. So just to let everybody know that.
Hey,
Okay.
team, we're at time and I have to hop off to another meeting. But before I hop off, I just wanted to, give you an opportunity to provide any support contacts. So as we start to roll out, and if anybody has any questions that are technical in nature, what's the best way for us to get in contact with you?
So right now, Sam, the best way to do it is the way that you do for support. I think by tomorrow we'll have like another method to just for the POC part. So like during operating hours, it would be just through your regular support access to Celeste and team. The way that you're doing it now, like for the rest of the system, just notify that it's for POS and then or POC of the store 156. And if there's any questions, then they can direct it to the correct person, and we'll get to you to that question and reach out to the person rapidly. After hours, there's going to be a call system where it'll reach out to the person who's on queue. If they're not available, it'll move down the chain, and I'll provide you that information. Hopefully by Monday we'll have that set up for you guys.
Perfect.
Yep.
And then team, you'll see communication coming from me and my team in the coming weeks. As the next steps, the dates that you'll be logging in. Reminder that next week is a buffer week, and then we'll have a SharePoint site set up through a Teams channel where you can go in and get all the resources you need for this. I also want to say special thank you to Eric and Leo for setting up this demo for us. Really like what I see, and I look forward for us being able to test it and give you some feedback.
Definitely, and want to thank you, Sam. I mean, we've worked very hard on this, and without you and your team's support, we wouldn't be at this stage and make this all possible. So, I mean, it's been some up and down, but I mean, I think it's well worth it. Hopefully, the team has seen that this is a totally new interface, a totally new solution. What Eric is going through is the enterprise health check. So you'll see when cameras are down, the number of cameras, retention, snapshots of cameras. It's totally different look and feel compared to what you guys currently have. And there's been a lot of advancement. And again, once again, I want to thank Home Depot for providing that feedback, that voice of the customer. Because we have heard you guys and have implemented a lot of things, that good ideas, right, that wasn't in our site and wouldn't be in our site unless you guys brought it up. So it just makes the product, the new product, so much better, and hopefully will benefit you guys in many ways in many years to come.
Thank you so much. For those of you still on the call, if you want to stay on and see some more, you're welcome to. Otherwise, I'm going to hop off, and feel free to stay on as long as you need. And Leo and Eric, thank you again.
Yep.
All right, take care.
Yep. Thank you, Sam.
So team, if you guys want to stay on, Eric can go over the enterprise health chat, but you're more than welcome to drop off.
Okay. All right. So this is Enterprise Health Check. For those who haven't seen it, it is